This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the latest edition of Tigers Talk from my vehicle this week. Episode number 43. I am your host, Vito Chirco. Doc is here via the cellular device of mine and his, and we're doing this podcast today, especially from my car, like I said, and alongside me is my friend, my colleague from UDM. In the past, he's a graduate now of UDM, pretty much officially. Soon to be, as he said, Carrick Jones is with me. Carrick, how's it going?
Good. It's great to do this show from beautiful downtown Mount Clemens, the hometown here tonight. Excited.
Yeah, we're excited here, Doc, and we are in Mount Clemens, in the Clemens Chirco, as other Mount Clemens residents, right, call it. Yeah, so they call it that. I'm going to call it that tonight. And we are here outside of Buffalo Wild Wings in Mount Clemens doing this podcast this week, episode 43. And, Doc, we have a lot on the docket, and I know you have something to bring up with me to start off the program this week.
Of course, I was checking Twitter, checking Facebook, seeing how everyone at the crew was doing, and I seen that you wrote about an individual that a lot of Tigers fans, when they hear his name, go, ooh, based upon how his career ended, Bobby Higginson. How did that come about? And for those that haven't read it, what did you write about?
So I wrote about Bobby Higginson, and he was famously called Higgy, for his decade-long stint, played 11 seasons officially, starting in 95, ending in 04, so 10 there, a decade-long stint. And his seasons, weren't always the best, for himself. And he wrapped up in 05, played 10 games in 05 to be even more specific here. So all that time, and, he was never really a memorable ball player in terms of never really recognized as one of the good ball players and best ball players in Tigers franchise history. And because of the fact that he played on a lot of crummy ball clubs. I mean, he was never on a winning ball club. He went to Temple University, never was on a winning ball club there. I think even in high school he was never on a winning ball club. So never won anything in his career as a baseball player, professional and before that. So this guy wanted to give some recognition to and show out to fans through stats about him that he had a pretty darn good career that deserves to be recognized among, some of the best players. And really, the thing was, my premise and the theme of it was that he was the best player, arguably the best player of that decade-long stint from 95 there to 05, barely played in 05, so really 95 to 04, where he had some really good numbers, and especially from 95 to 2000. 2000, he had 30 home runs, drove in 100-plus RBIs. He's only time hitting 30 home runs, and that was sad but true for a guy that was 29 at that point. Could have been even better, gotten better, but never really got any better and got gradually worse than after 2000, that first year at Comerica Park. So it's disappointing to see, but for a guy that was young then, I was only 7 in 2000, he was my favorite guy to watch, and the only guy that I really thought, well, maybe he had a chance to play in another team that was a winning ball club. And I wrote about two in the article for Detroit Athletic Company, the blog there at Detroit Athletic Company, that he deserved the chance to play on a winning team. Just never got the chance to do so, and that's a shame. And that's what I wrote about in that article for Detroit Athletic Company.
Vito, do you remember when he signed that big contract that Bobby Higginson had a lot of huge expectations, and then it just seemed like his struggles with the Tigers drew the ire of the fans, and he became someone that I think a lot of people would call a scapegoat?
Yeah, for all their problems, and they were full of woes. I mean, offensive, defensive, pitching woes. It wasn't just him, but he became the scapegoat because of that large contract. It was an albatross of a contract because really once it kicked into full gear where he was making 10, 12-plus million a year, that's when he just stunk it up. And I know one season it really elevated to a high amount, the highest amount that it ever was for his contract after he got that extension. And he stunk it up even more than ever before that season. And that might have been in the woeful 03 campaign when they lost 119 games, an AL record for the most losses in a single season. So disappointing times for him, never played in a winning ball club, and he kind of became the scapegoat. I would admit to that he kind of was that scapegoat for all their troubles, all their losing from 95 to 04, and then even in 05 when he only played in 10 games.
And so where can people read that article?
at Detroit Athletic Company. I'll have another piece up this week. It'll be on Comerica Park, what I like about it, where I like to sit, that kind of deal, kind of stuff there about Comerica. And it should be posted, like I said, this week on the Detroit Athletic Company blog.
Now, we're recording this podcast, a fun podcast with you and the boys after a night out at the bar. So we got to ask, how many did you throw down?
Well, you know what? It was funny. This guy and we didn't drink tonight. We weren't really partying or throwing anything down. But I still wanted to see my guy here, Chirco. I'm going on this 6-city tour now throughout the month of June for Somebody football. Shameless plug right there thrown into the middle of this podcast. But I'll be busy, so I wanted to see these guys. Him and Brett Karbovich was on the first ever edition of Tigers Talk when he was my producer, for a lack of a better term, let's say. He did a lot for me. And Chirco, throughout the years at UDM as the co-host of Chirco and Company back in the day at UDM for what was CST Radio and then became later UDM Radio. So it was good to see him tonight. He is here right now, and we're ready to break down some Tigers action and what the heck has happened so far tonight and really in totality on the West Coast up to this point where they have been very disappointing, as you know, Doc.
Yeah, what was your fellas' reaction when, Anibal Sanchez struggles, everyone's talking about how awful he is, and he goes out there in a 30-pitch first inning, gives up 2 runs after the Tigers score first. And then in the second inning, it was just a total disaster. And this is a guy that a lot of people are talking about as being a focal point as to why the pitching staff has struggled. A guy that we're paying $16 million to. He basically goes out there and gives up 5 runs a game. How disappointed were you guys? Were you guys angry watching this evening at Buffalo Wild Wings?
Well, it made me want to drink. I think it made Chirco want to drink, too. We're used to Anibal Sanchez just stinking it up. He is beyond good, beyond even, I think, just being bad. That's what I want to say, because he's on the downside of his career, Doc. There's no doubt about it. Chirco, I've seen every Tiger fan that wants even a little bit of Anibal Sanchez sees it right now, that he's on the extreme downside of his career. There is nothing really left in the tank. I mean, barely. What would you say? A little bit of diesel left in the tank? That's about it for Anibal right now, Chirco.
I think he could be a bullpen guy. I question if you want him in the bullpen, though, for $16 million a year. There's no question, and I was telling Vito when we sat down, the Tigers have to do something about the pitching here. I think they have the bats to get through this year. I just saw Mike Moustakas is done for the year for the Royals. That's going to be a big blow to them. But, the White Sox are getting ready to pull in Big Game James. So the Tigers are going to need to make a move if this is really the last year of the window, and they got to figure out the pitching. Right now they got Verlander, and Fulmer's been great, but outside of those two, and Zimmerman, he should be back Friday. So the Tigers definitely need to get ready to make a move here with the pitching.
They've been lucky that Fulmer has been as good as he has been. I mean, you know that from watching the Tigers. Chirco knows that. Look at what he's been doing as a rookie. First time in the big leagues, being an impactful pitcher thus far. Really, as the third-best starter already in the Tigers' road toe because, Anibal Sanchez is struggling so mightily, giving up all these.
He's a dumpster fire.
And he's been a dumpster fire for the most part, even though, Humphrey, I'll give him some credit here. He's been better of late, a little bit better at least, where he's looked respectable. Where Sanchez hasn't even looked respectable. Like I said, he's on the extreme downside of his career. I would like to just dispose of him, DFA him, but he's got a large contract. It's hard to just get rid of a guy like that. And to trade him, he is unmovable, totally unmovable in my opinion because of that large contract. So you can't move him. So you got to deal with them, stick it out with him as a rotation arm. But he sucks so much, he's not even good enough to be a fifth starter right now. And he sucks so much that Pelfrey is looking better than him, and really has been.
And Pelfrey's a career trash pitcher. I mean, I don't understand what Avila was thinking signing Pelfrey in the first place. But if they can't, you're not going to win in this division with 3 pitchers. End of story. And the Tigers need to go out and look at some third and fourth option guys. And I really think before he gets signed, they need to take a good hard look at Tim Lincecum and take the risk.
Well, he got signed by the Halos.
Well,
he signed by the Angels, so he's off the table. Come on now, get your facts now. But you were right. You're right about how they're not going to do anything with just three starters.
They're not.
You can't do anything with 3 quality starters and a bullpen that has been shaky. Now, if the bullpen was really good, stout, and when lights out like the Royals has been, the last few years now, it's a different story. You could get away with having 3 strong or close to strong starting pitchers. Thing is, really, you kind of need the 4. You need a 4-starter, and the bullpen's not great. It's not very deep.
You don't have a piece. You have 2 really good number 2 pitchers and a rookie. Now, I think that Boyd and Van Man could get it together this year, but I don't think you want to rely on 3 rookie pitchers to get you through the back end of your order. And I think they got to go out and the good thing is the Tigers do have a few prospects down and playing for West Michigan, and outside of Moya, they got some guys at Double-A. Maybe it's time to let some of the spoils that you got last year go in order to get some. They don't need big time starters. They need third and fourth guys.
Well, I mean, if you can get an ace, you go out and get it. But a guy like Tim Lincecum, some of you have brought up, who's on the Halos now, is not going to solve their issues, really. Because really, they have the back end of the rotation guys. Anibal Sanchez is that, barely that. Humphrey is barely that, but they are that. And these rookies that they're counting on are youngsters like Fulmer, who is a rookie. North was a youngster. He pitched last year, remember, 2 for the Tigers down the stretch once they got him from the Blue Jays in that David Price deal. He was quality. Now, he hasn't been in AAA, but he's another youngster you're counting upon. That's a lot to ask from the bandman, or the Axeman. I mean, a lot of nicknames for him. But whatever you want to give him as a nickname, he's got to pitch better than what he has done so far in AAA on his rehab assignment. So if they get him back, though, to full health and pitching quality baseball every fifth day, maybe 4 guys, counting Fulmer, Verlander, and Zimmerman, too. But Zimmerman has been outstanding. And really, we can't ask him for anything more. We can't expect him to truly keep it up because he's more of a number 2, honestly. And Verlander is that, too, where he's going to struggle here and there and not be that dominant ace every fifth, time out, every fifth start, or fifth day there, starting for the Tigers.
Blown to his last 2 starts. They've completely blown him.
Yep.
He did his job, and you know what? Me and we were talking there. Castellanos has been great this year. V-Mart's been great. Miggy's heating up. Kinsler's heating up. But if the pitching isn't there and the bats heat up, they don't have a shot, and they're so far behind the White Sox right now.
Well, the White Sox are struggling, remember. They lost 7 in a row they had just recently, and they keep piling up. Tigers are in the mix, actually, more than you think now, too.
But at the same time, if they're getting ready to make a move for James Shields, the Tigers need to be ready to pull the trigger. They don't have to get an ace like James Shields, but they need at least, and you're going to laugh at me for it, they need an Aaron Harang caliber third, fourth guy right now. Aaron Harang of last year when he came.
Aaron Harang of back in his Cincinnati Reds, realistically. Now, he's not really even that kind of a guy, barely even in the league. I don't even know if he's in the league. I don't even know where Aaron Harang is.
He was good honestly, though, for a bit.
As a fifth starter.
Yeah.
He's a Randy Wolf type of guy that we get off the scrap heap who barely pitches good enough to be a major league starter anymore. Harang is that. He's 30 plus something. I think he's actually in his post-baseball career at this point, Randy Wolf is, too. And they've got youngsters. They got youngsters they're going to rely on, I think, instead of picking up a veteran like that who is kind of on the downside.
Getting a veteran like Francisco Liriano from the Pirates.
And you can get those guys, but the Pirates are contending. Or they're trying to. They've been good in the past 3 straight years. Being that wild card. Well, if they are. They still have McCutcheon, Josh Harrison, the J.A. as they call them there in Pittsburgh. So they like their guys, their bats, their youngsters, too. They like Garrett Cole at the top of that rotation. They like Liriano. They like Burnett, who's been injury-prone a little bit, but that's a good threesome right there. They can go with that, and they really have a capable starting rotation because of those.
Now, the Twin Cities guys are struggling. And, you look out west, the Astros, what happened to them? They were like the new America's team. They're struggling. Do you think anybody possibly on one of those teams, or maybe even on the Halos we were talking about, the only thing good they've had for them is Mike Trout? What do you think about possibly bringing in that type of, maybe getting a pitcher from one of those guys, trying to move something around? Because right now, the Tigers need to do something.
That's what the Tigers need. It's a big void for the Tigers right now because Sanchez, what is he going to produce going forward? So they should look to teams that are struggling. Maybe the Padres or James Shields. Get him instead of letting a team like the White Sox go out and get him, who I don't think will be actually interested in attaining him because they don't truly need a guy like that right now. And because, you know what, Tigers, that's about the best they can get probably even at the trade deadline as we approach it closer to the non-waiver trade deadline of July 31st, as it is regularly in Major League Baseball. Because I don't think they're going to get a top-of-the-line guy who's young, such as a Garrett Cole, or maybe even of the type of Francisco Liriano, who has kind of become that veteran ace, really is at the top of the Pirates' rotation now. So they got to look at these bottom-of-the-hill teams, pretty much the dweller sellers, and even look at a team, maybe the A's in the West, who they just played, the Halos, who they are playing, look at their rotation arms. What are the options there that they could maybe add? Now, there's not a lot with the Halos. They have a lot of injuries. Andrew Heaney is out right now, as I wrote about in my recent scouting report for the Tigers and who they're facing the Halos right now, and he's out. Weaver's no longer what he used to be. He throws 80, 86, something like that. 86 feet topped out.
Wouldn't it?
Well, he's in L.A. He's a California kid. Jeff Weaver pitched here. No. No, Jared Weaver is a guy that was.
I got you. I got him mixed up.
Yes, Jeff was here. Gotta get your dream Weavers correct there. So Jeff was really never even as good as Jared. But the point is here, to sum it up, Halos don't really have any options because C.J. Wilson is hurt. Garrett Richards, their ace, who was pitching really well, he's out now, might undergo Tommy Gunn just like Heaney. So they don't have many guys really for us to get from there. Maybe Hector Santiago. Hector is starting now Tuesday night against the Tigers. Was pitching so well before we got into this podcast.
No,
but he hasn't pitched that.
Killing us right now, like 8 or 9-2.
That tells you. He's better than Sanchez. Sanchez is miserable. And that's why, you know what, to sum it up, they got to add a starting pitcher, and I would like James Shields, who has a 3-something ERA right now in San Diego, and is a reliable number 2, who could then easily slot into the number 3 hole in the Tigers' roto.
Now, I was looking at the standings. Braves are bottom feeding in the NL, and the Braves have a few gentlemen that you know I like very well. One being Mr. Eric O'Flaherty.
You've always liked that arm.
More to bring him in, but who else they got in here that I noticed? They have Ryan Weber. It would be nice to see if they can bring
Ryan Webb, you mean? What's the name?
No, Weber.
Well, you've liked O'Flaherty for a long time. A second arm can be a flamethrower, too, and, you know, especially used to be in his heyday. But, you know what, Doc, and I'll ask you, I'll throw it to you here, too. You know, their bullpen, what do you think about it? Because I have mixed feelings. I think it should be better, and it's still at this point deeper than last year, even though it has struggled and has looked really bad at times, as Carrick said. It blew that game for JV, had a great outing over the weekend, and he got blown up in his face because the bullpen failed him once again.
Yeah, fellas, I've been listening. Very interesting talk. But with the bullpen, here's something that is a concern, is that right now you got guys in there that maybe aren't being used properly. You know, you have situations where Brad Ausmus is so by the book that he wants a regimented 7th inning guy, 8th inning guy, use your closer. I mean, look at what Bob Melvin did versus the Tigers. I mean, in the victory, I believe it was the series clinching victory on Sunday. You had the heart of the Tigers order up. So what did he do in the 8th inning? Bob Melvin threw his closer in there in the 8th inning. And so what we're seeing is a situation with the Tigers and Brad Ausmus is that, you know, it just isn't the right mix. Right now, our Twitter page, fellas, has blown up because of the Tigers' awful stat line. They're losing, as you guys said, 9-2. Anibal Sanchez goes 3 innings, 64 pitches, 8 hits, 6 earned runs. So Ausmus goes to Warwick Southpole from Australia, a guy that came out his first game and had a nice performance, but everyone said it, and I tweeted it out. A guy that features a 92 to 93 mile an hour fastball, professional hitters are going to get to him, and the Angels have torched him. 1 inning, 21 pitches. He's already given up 3 earned runs. It's just, you know, right now a situation where if the bullpen is going to go out there and be effective, then they're going to need to be put in the proper spot. And I don't know if the guy that's making the decisions, Brad Ausmus, is the right guy. And we've seen now, again, since his return, as we're recording this, the Tigers are on a 3-game losing streak, about to be 4. But I know we're talking about pitching, but how much blame should we give the offense in the last couple games? If you guys look at the stat lines from the last 3 games, the big hitters have gone basically, you know, Miggy, JD, Upton, have basically batted 100 the last 3 games. Don't you guys think the offense should be a little bit to blame as well in this stretch? Because when Miggy's hitting, when JD is hitting, when the offense is mashing, it just seems like everything is in place.
Well, hasn't JF struggled all year long? I mean, it's been his season-long struggles at the plate. But anyways, outside of him, yeah, there have been guys that have struggled of late that really haven't been for the season-long period of time, such as Miguel Cabrera, obviously, who started off slow and now is in another funk. Not good for your all-star slugger, a guy that, you know, has been a multiple MVP award winner, a guy that won the Triple Crown as well. So Miguel Cabrera has done it all, and now we're seeing some struggles. Maybe he's wearing down a little bit. Still a very high-impact guy in the middle of their order. Trust me, I'm not trying to take too much away from Miguel Cabrera. But look at, you know, his stat line, not against righties per se, but against lefties this year. It is something like, I believe this is correct, his stat line was, his average specifically, below 200 against left-handers, who hit a home run. Now, he hit a home run off of one of the left-handers in the Halos rotation Tuesday night, hitting one off of Hector Santiago early in the game. Really, their only, you know, kind of offense there against Hector Santiago. And Tigers haven't produced him late. You are right. You are definitely right, Doc. But I can't place too much blame on these guys when they've hit a lot of the season. Now, Upton hasn't all placed blame on him, but guys go through slow periods of time at the plate where they don't hit as well as they usually do, and that we're accustomed to seeing these guys do. So, for me, I can't take too much of this into account and say it's on them, or place too much of the blame to sum it up on these guys for struggling a bit and for why the Tigers are losing, to be even more specific, Doc.
Do you guys see Sanchez or Pelfrey being sent to the bullpen? Because every time it's debated, everyone's like, well, Pelfrey's making $8 million. He's slotted to be a starter. So if he's not successful, he has no role. Sanchez is making $16 million. These guys need to be put in the bullpen. Tony Paul had a great article. He's like, listen, some veterans need to go to the bullpen and these young guys got to come up and do their thing.
Yeah, they got to do whatever that needs to take to win and win this year. I mean, it's that simple. I was just looking at possible guys at the trade deadline. Go out to the A's. You already have a relationship with them as an organization, and go get a guy like Rich Hill who's having a really good year, because you don't need to go get superstars, and you're not going to you don't have the prospects to go get a Julio Teheran from Atlanta. Atlanta's going to ask for your firstborn child, but you got some guys down on the farm. Zemayak has been having a great year down.
Joe Zemayak is back?
No, Zemayak. Kevin.
I don't know about Joe Zemayak all of a sudden, the best relief pitcher that 06 bullpen. And, I wanted to say something. You brought up Zemayak really quick. That's why the Tigers were so good almost, because their best relief pitcher was pitching in the middle innings then. You got to need that good guy in the middle innings right now. And maybe now with that being said, seconding into another point here to make, is that they could put one of these guys the rotation arm right now into the bullpen, into the middle innings, and can lengthen the game for the Tigers in terms of making them more able to win games that are closely contested.
Who normally has one or two good innings, and then flames out.
Yep, can pitch you a few good and quality innings. Definitely 2 or 3 innings out of the pack.
ERA and strikeout king.
He was the ERA leader. Only 3 years removed from that. In 2013, he was the ERA leader in the American League, 2.57 earned run average. And now look at him. He can't survive more than 3-4 innings at this point. And realistically, if he gives you 5 innings, that's a high quality game, and it's not even that really out of a major league starting pitcher who is expected to be your 3rd best starting pitcher. He is no longer that, and I would love to cut
on the farm.
They got to cut ties with them. They're not going to send him down. I don't think he has any options remaining at this place. Too old of a ball player and has been down there before. So that being said, I think that's out of the equation, and they're not going to entertain that idea right now, unless he's hurt. Now they can make up an injury and then put him on the farm to regain kind of everything, refine his craft, because he needs to do that, or he's going to be ousted, I think, sooner than later, or at least relegated to long relief bullpen duties or duties in the middle innings, where they could use a guy, like you said, that can go 2 or 3 deep in the game for the Tigers, too, and you got to lengthen the quality of the pen if he can be, which is a big, big question, if he can be more efficient, though, in the bullpen, which, can you bank on that? Like I said, it's a big question. I know I won't be doing so, Doc and Tarek.
Do you see this situation where are we overreacting to the recent, for now potentially 4-game losing streak? Because, this is what the Tigers have been doing. They're up and down. Obviously, this stretch out west, everyone thought was going to be tough. Brad Ausmus returned from, obviously a couple days off from the death of his mom, a scheduled day off for, the graduation of his daughter. But it just seems like that once he came back that the Tigers went into another lull. And what we're all asking for, what we're all trying to see from this team is consistency, but we're not getting it. And everyone's talking about the moves made by Brad Ausmus, the struggles of the manager of the squad. A lot of people are not confident, but I just don't see, I see this team being a 500 team, and it's a team that, is put together incorrectly. It doesn't look like this is a team that's going to contend. And a lot of people are starting to creep on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. A lot of people are starting the talk already of sell, move some of this garbage if you're going to look ahead to the future.
I think right now, if you're at Ausmus making some in-game bad decisions, it's more about some guys just not getting it done, okay? Not cutting the mustard seed in their roles that they were expected to perform in and performing efficiently going into the regular season. Guys such as Jose Iglesias. Let's point the finger at him. Let's point the finger at James McCann now, as well, the catcher of the Tigers, who is not performing like an everyday starting catcher with the bat at all. These guys have hovered around 200, been below 200. Iglesias is barely above it, and McCann is below it. James McCann, that is. And you know what? These guys have to hit better, and I point the finger at those guys. I place some of the blame on those guys who are hitting, at the bottom of the order, but some to be more productive than a 200 or below the Mendoza line hitter, which means you're not even good enough to really play in the major leagues on a consistent everyday basis. And I'm talking about specifically James McCann. I'm talking about you, McCann. You got to pick up your production at the plate. And he made his first error ever as a major leaguer the other night, too. And I know you wanted to kind of talk about that and talk about these defensive miscues and errors made by the Tigers of late. Kinsler as well was a Gold Glove candidate and was last year and was the best fielder at second, according to Fielding Bible. You know, he should have been the AL Gold Glove winner last year at second base. Deserved it big time. I thought he was screwed out of it. And this year, you know, maybe not as good. J.D. Martinez, a Gold Glove candidate last year, was up for that award for right fielders and outfielders. And this year, he hasn't been nearly as good dropping fly balls. He's dropped 2 now that I know I've seen watching games this year for the Tigers. So these guys just haven't been as good, and they got to pick it up and be better, too. And Kinsler, you know what? It was one little thing. I expect him to be better. I know it blew up the game there for the Tigers. It led to that big turnaround there over the weekend. But you know what? These guys are capable major leaguers. I expect them to be better, to be more productive at the plate, in the field. If you're talking about Kinsler, you know, in the field, those maybe a little bit of struggles. And J.D. Martinez, the same thing. But Iglesias, McCann, and I'm not as sure about those guys turning it around at this point, even though it's still relatively early. But you're past 40 games at this point. You kind of know what these guys are all about and what they're made of and what they're going to produce going forward. Iglesias just might not be the greatest hitter. He's that guy that can hit a grounder and beat out a grounder, you know, hit a third, second, shortstop for a single. But can he make it on base? Otherwise, his OBP is not very good. Even wasn't, you know, as well as maybe some other guys could, you know, produce with their OBP if they have the average that he did last year, Iglesias. Now, it was a quality OBP, but the OBP is way down this year, and it's showing because of the fact that he Ks and doesn't want to get on base. So his OBP has taken a big-time downturn, and he's got to pick that up. And then McCann, can he hit any better? And, you know, Tony Lamaki has been struggling now. Hasn't been as good as he was at the beginning of the year with hitting the home runs. And his OPS is still relatively high because of his early season success at the plate and specifically with how he raked home runs early on. But with that being said, because he's struggled of late, now McCann there's more pressure now on him to produce. And I think with the injury he had going on the DL earlier this year, coming off of it, I think this might be a lost campaign for McCann. And for sophomores do tend to have struggles too, no matter if they're a pitcher or a hitter, Carrick.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's time to give up yet. I think you look at how well Maben has been over the last
Still hitting above 400, by the way, Maben is.
Absolutely. And you know what? Both those guys are young. Iglesias isn't going to be a great hitter. I don't think they ever expect him to be a great hitter.
Because of how he hit. I mean, are you disappointed, and do you expect him to pick it up at some point?
What is his third year in the majors?
He was in the majors in 2013. That was his first year, so fourth year now.
Okay.
It will be, yeah.
Fourth year, but, you know, he was injured for a little bit a few years ago. And, you know, he had the shin splints, right?
He had those two, He
was out for almost a year with the shin splints, right? So, I'm not worried about him. I'm not worried about McCann. If they didn't think McCann was the real deal, they would not brought back Alex Avila. McCann's the real deal. He'll be fine. You know, I really think if they can fix the bullpen issue, the top-of-the-line guys are going to carry them, and the bullpen and the starters, and I think you got to look at it as, you know, it's only about to be June 1st. You got 2 full more months before you got to decide if you want to sell or not. Because let's be honest, you could sell everything on July 31st at the trade.
Yeah, they have to wait it out, Doc, and they're not going to sell now. They're not in that mode. They were barely even in that mode last year, and they should have been selling even before they started selling off their ball players, Soria and all those guys, at the deadline last year in Cespedes. And Cespedes, now look at him raking with the Mets. Should they have brought him back? You know, sign him to some big money instead of signing Jay up. I mean, it's looking like that more and more now, guys. What do you think, Carrick?
Well, I think it was a peas and carrots thing. I don't think Upton's going to be horrible for the Tigers. I don't think he's going to be Cespedes. But look at what you got for Cespedes. You got a good starter in Michael Fulmer.
Well, if he keeps it up, that's why it might be worth it. And I know you kind of wanted to have us debate this, too, about Cespedes or Fulmer. Who would you rather have? I want to actually take Fulmer myself because they need rotation. They have a good lineup. You know, they do really right now.
Look how old Cespedes is. He's not going to be doing this forever. He's already over, he's 34, 35?
No, he's younger. I'll give you this. I'll say this much about Cespedes. He's younger. And, you know, Upton is, too, and that's why they signed him at only 28. They think he might be really, really good going forward, have some more prime years. And Cespedes still does as well. But Fulmer's even younger. He is that top pitching prospect that they needed to really reinvigorate their rotation. And it looks like he's starting to do that already. As you know, said earlier in the show, as the third best starting pitcher in the Tigers' rotation to this point. Now, will he keep it up? I don't know, but it's not about this year and what he produces. It's about following season is what he produces. So if he pitches like this and even better going forward, you need a guy like that more than what Cespedes has done and can do as well going forward.
I think if the three of them that they got last year, pitching-wise, Fulmer and Norris are good as starters and Boyd as, a bullpen guy or a fifth starter, I think if all three of them pan out, that they really did good in those trades. And, I mean, even that shortstop they got that's been suspended for PEDs, he's supposed to be pretty darn good, too. So.
And Doc, look at what he's done on the farm so far. I believe in Double-A, I believe it is. He's been great so far, only about 10-something games, but hitting above 300, and he's a guy that needs to hit to be productive, and he's shown that he can. And I believe he's playing multiple positions, I think even third base now. So I like what he maybe can produce going forward as well. So it looks like they're reaping the benefits now early on, but they should be able to reap the benefits going forward as well with these prospects that Carrick talked about.
Yeah, Dave D definitely left him some parting gifts.
I think he did. I think he left them in a good state, in a better state than many people believe. And give Dave D credit for it. To sum it up, Carrick. And Carrick is leaving us tonight. He is heading out of my vehicle. Carrick, thank you very much for contributing to episode 43 of the podcast. And Doc, with that was Carrick Jones. Thank you very much to KJ coming through in the clutch there as my guest for this on the road kind of edition of Tigers Talk, episode 43. And Doc, you're coming through in the clutch doing this late night recording with me while your wife and kids presumably are asleep, correct?
Yes, sir, man. I'm having a good time. I actually kind of like the fact that we're a little bit flexible doing this. You guys were having a good old time. Carrick brings it. I was curious. Maybe you'll tell me. I'm sure he's very excited due to the fact that the Penguins are in the Stanley Cup Finals. I know.
Oh my God, you remember that? Yeah, he's an excited man right now. Yeah, for that reason especially.
Now, definitely, the whole Fulmer versus Cespedes debate has been talked about, debated, and right now about 56% of our followers really want Cespedes, and that's obviously because of the fact that he's mashing the baseball. The Tigers went out and gave a huge contract to Upton. Now he got a home run Tuesday night, but all in all, the first part of his stint with the Tigers has been relatively disappointing. And you see what Cespedes is able to do with the Mets. It's just been very disappointing. It's been very disappointing to see how Justin Upton has kind of adjusted with the Tigers. And you go out there and you see Cespedes just mashing the baseball. You figure, oh my goodness, we let a gem get away. And now you look at a situation where the Tigers are built as a strong hitting team. A guy like Cespedes will look really good on this team.
Oh my God, wouldn't he? Big time. Yeah, because Upton has struggled so mightily. That's why people are even resorting to that opinion more and more. And as the season progresses, Upton keeps struggling. If Cespedes keeps hitting at the rate that he is for the Mets, with the power production too, well, yeah, we're going to regret that move of letting him go there. Well, maybe we still could have signed him even after trading him to the Mets for Michael Fulmer, who has worked out tremendously well in that rotation spot, really being, like I said, the third best starting pitcher up to this point in the season. So I like what Fulmer has given to the Tigers, and that's why I really can't regret anything right now or blame Dave D for pulling the trigger on that move to move Cespedes to the Mets to acquire Michael Fulmer. So I think I will never blame Dave D for making that move, even though right now I miss Cespedes' bat in the middle of the Tigers' order. But it's more of Alavila there, the move that he made to sign Justin Upton to the albatross of a contract, which we kind of knew would be a big-time contract and too big of a contract at the point when they signed him to the deal. So that's on that mistake. If it is a mistake, ends up being even a bigger one going forward. That's solely on Alavila. So got to blame him for that one there, signing him instead of maybe going after Cespedes a little bit harder.
Yeah, Vito. Now you're a free contributor, and I know you previewed the upcoming series this week, the Angels, the Yankees, and White Sox. For those that didn't read the article, what can we expect versus the Yankees and White Sox? It looks like we're going to be heading into those series, a little bit weakened and, battered and beaten after the series versus the Angels.
Yeah, it's not looking good after this West Coast trip, and now they play the Yankees in a makeup game Thursday night there at Comerica. And CC Sabathia for the Yanks. I want to just talk about him really quick. I previewed that he's been he's been a huge surprise and a huge reclamation project for the Yankees in a successful manner, too, with how he's been pitching thus far, really being their second-best starting pitcher behind Masahiro Tanaka, their ace, at the top of that Yankees rotation. And they have the three-headed monster at the back end of their pen, former Tiger Andrew Miller, their eighth-inning man, Dylan Betances, never can say his name fully correct, but he's a seventh-inning guy, and they all can throw heat. Him, Miller, and then, the man in the ninth inning, fireballer himself, Aroldis Chapman, throws 102 miles per hour plus consistently there in the Yanks to close down games. So I like what they have there. The rotation is kind of thin. They rely upon 35-year-old CC Cespedes to a large degree, and I think too large of a degree to really sustain any kind of long-term success there this season specifically. So they got to see if they can get some more production out of a guy, or you know what, maybe just continued production out of Nathan Eovaldi in that third spot. And, you know, Severino, who was a top prospect coming into the year, has struggled with 7 ERA, I believe. Now, he was on the DL and now sent down to AAA there. And if he can bounce back, you know, later in the season when he's called back up, presumably if he is called back up, which I think he will, as a result of his top prospect status going into this year, and he can be a solid fourth starter behind Eovaldi, Sabathia, and Tanaka, then they have something in the works where they can contend truly all season long. But there are a lot of still kind of weak, a lot of aging vets, and one of those guys is 40-year-old A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez, who I like to call A-Royd for his usage of steroids in the past. And then 36-year-old Mark Teixeira, who's had some injury problems already this year, and they don't have that safety valve anymore in the form of Gregory Bird to rely upon when Teixeira is on the shelf. So no longer do they have that insurance policy to take out with Teixeira going through any long-term or, you know, prolonged injury problems. So their lineup is weaker and weaker by the day, it seems like, and aging to say the least as well by the day. And that's why I don't see the Yanks as true contenders in the AL East for the entirety of the season. And after Thursday night makeup game against the Yankees at Comerica, Tigers then end up playing the White Sox for a 3-game set at home. A big series there with their rival Chicago White Sox, who were in first place, have been for a long, long time now this year, have really overachieved and have fallen back down to earth of late, being losers of 7 straight prior to Tuesday. So the rotation good. Chris Sale, AL Cy Young favorite to start off the season, 9 wins in a row, 9-0, but he started off as there with the White Sox. Great starting pitcher, a guy that can be a true ace all season long. I like what Quintana can do as a number 2 guy, and I like what their youngster, Carlos Rodon, can do as a third starter there in that rotation. But after that, a little bit weak, as many rotations are. The Tigers just wish they had 3 good, reliable starting pitchers. Well, you know, 3 veteran guys. You know, Fulmer, like I talked about, as a youngster, has been really reliable as a number 3 guy. Well, the White Sox kind of have at least 2 now guys you can consider veteran-type guys who are anchoring the rotation and have been reliable in anchoring the rotation, specifically in Chris Sale and then Quintana as a number 2 guy. Rodon is still young. He pitched last year, too. But I like what they have there. And they're all relatively, even though Sale now and Quintana are veterans, they're all relatively young. So this rotation can be good for years and years on end going forward for the White Sox. And what should be a competitive AL Central for a lot of years coming up, too. As I don't think many of these teams are truly on the decline. The Twins should be on the rise soon enough, too. And the Royals don't seem to be on the verge of having a huge decline in the near future as well. But back to the White Sox, you have Todd Frazier, the Godfather, third place, hitting home run after home run there in the middle of the White Sox's order. Jose Abreu has to pick up the production a little bit, though, at the plate. And if the White Sox truly want to contend all season long for the division crown in the AL Central. And that's where I see the Yankees at right now and the White Sox at. Because the White Sox, I think, are on the verge of something bad for themselves. And they showed that of late, coming back down to earth, being losers in the 7th straight, like I said, prior to this recording on Tuesday of this week. Because of that, the Tigers have a legitimate shot as they rectify their issues in their rotation and in the middle innings and back end of their bullpen and get something out of at least Iglesias and or McCann in their everyday lineup.
See, Vito, you're an eternal optimist. I think I'm at my wit's end. I'm sitting here watching the Tigers and their offense. I mean, literally on Monday versus the Angels, they made the Angels starting pitcher look like he was a Cy Young candidate with all the curveballs that he was throwing and all the whiffs. You know, it's just one of those things. When I look at the Tigers, I ask myself and I go to myself, I say, is this a team I would roll with day in, day out to compete for the World Series? And when I ask myself that, I say no. I think there are too many holes to fix, and right now what you got is a 500 team that's scuffling and a team that's in a lot of turmoil because you got some guys that are making a lot of money in the starting rotation, in the middle of that lineup that sometimes are, a little bit inconsistent. And when you're looking at this team, I think that they can finish with a decent record. I mean, they're not garbage, but right now they're sitting lower in the AL Central, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, you know what? I think it's time. It's time to rebuild this whole operation, and the longer that we, continue to watch this, I mean, the Angels are a decent team. The Tigers versus decent teams are not showing what they're capable of and they're not showing anything that's worth, sticking around and having any confidence in. So in my opinion, the longer you wait to rebuild this, then the longer it's going to take to actually have a team that's going to compete for the World Series. It's time. You have assets. This team, if you look at it on paper, has assets, and I think some phone calls got to be made at the deadline, at the All-Star break, in order to potentially add some pieces. I think I'm at my wit's end with this team.
Well, that's you. I guess I am the eternal optimist, trying to be positive and super positive. I guess I am more that type than you are, Doc. The eternal pessimist, right? I guess we can say that about you as part of this podcast here on Tigers Talk. And there are a lot of negatives, a lot of woes that we can talk about. We have covered, I think, all the bases with the negatives, all the woes. But you got to bring up some of the positives, like we have today, I think, on the podcast, too. Chirco and I talking about Fulmer, what he has done so far, Zimmerman, JB of late. And even though some bats have struggled, you still have a guy like Castellanos hit all year long impressively. Where did this come from? Nobody expected it. B-Mart really has all year long, for the most part up to this point. Cabby not of late, maybe, and out then all season long hasn't been good. But they have some, in the grand scheme of things, some solid bats that they can rely upon. And that's a good thing. That's why I'm an eternal optimist the most. And also because I see what Fulmer's in, and I like what I see. And that gives you three quality starters as Verlander and Zimmerman keep it up at the top of the rotation in the number 1 and 2 spots in the Tigers' roto. So if they get anything now out of an Iglesias or McCann in the bottom of the lineup and out of some of their bullpen arms at the back end of games more consistently, like a Mark Lowe, needing more out of him consistently, and Justin Wilson. Really, the Wilsons as a total, Alex Wilson included. They get more out of those two guys and Mark Lowe, well, they can be something. And remember now, Chirco brought it up earlier in the podcast when he was on, too, about Mike Moustakas now being out for the season for the Royals. That's a big-time loss. A darn big loss for the Royals in the lineup there in KC. Meaning, Tigers even have more of a shot now because that diminishes what they can do offensively on a game-to-game basis there in KC. So because of that, because of the White Sox's woes of late and their offensive woes as a whole thus far, and I think going forward, what they will encounter in terms of deficiencies in their lineup 1 through 9 outside of Todd Frazier and then Jose Abreu once he really, really picks it up in the middle of their order. Because of all that added up, I think the Tigers still have a legitimate shot to win the division despite all their struggles on the road and especially on the West Coast so far here against the A's and now the Halos.
Now, you know what's not disappointing?
What is it?
Being able to do a podcast and have great sponsors that support us. One of the fine sponsors of the Tigers Talk podcast, Team Top Cat Sales. Tell us all about them, Vito.
Top Cat Sales, a great Adidas apparel distribution company in downtown Royal Oak, Michigan. Lovely downtown and historic Royal Oaks, I like to call it. And yes, we sell Adidas gear, some of the finest quality and the best service only from Top Cat Sales, owned and founded by John Wangler, former U of M quarterback, now a great leader as the CEO at Top Cat Sales. And the headquarters can be found once again in Royal Oak. And Top Cat Sales, you can access and buy some stuff, purchase some apparel from Top Cat Sales online at TopCatTeamSales.com. Also, you can follow Top Cat Sales and must do so on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
Now, Vito, in the coming weeks, you're going to be all around town with these sound mind, sound body camps. Are you excited to be participating in these football camps?
Oh, man. Yes, sir. It's a big opportunity, the biggest one of my life, really, so far, for being around sports and a sport that I like a lot in football and getting an opportunity to enhance my connections and network even more and more with people, all these big head coaches that I'll be rubbing elbows with at these camps. And in Detroit, over 70 head football coaches, D1 guys, D2, D3, JUCO coaches, Jim Harbaugh, Urban Meyer, Mark D'Antonio, James Franklin, all these guys, all these big head honchos from the Big Ten. And if you got Harbaugh, if you got Meyer, D'Antonio, all in the same place, man, you can't beat that. So, hell, I'm not going to be able to probably live any better in the month of June than I am traveling to all these 6 academy sites for Sound Mind, Sound Body Football, that is. And make sure, since I know I'm a member of Sound Mind, Sound Body Football, make sure to follow Sound Mind, Sound Body Football, the Academy, on Twitter at SMSB Football, and I am the Twitter moderator. I'm the guy that handles all the tweets, all the retweets, all that. So engage with me, interact with me, send me a DM. And how about Sound Mind, Sound Body? Help me out with doing that to get out even more of the word about the greatness that is Sound Mind, Sound Body and what is done efficiently at Somebody Football, which is promoting life skills and also on the field football skills to a lesser degree.
No, Vito, you're a hardworking kid. I appreciate it. Even on a Memorial holiday, it's a Tuesday, the 31st. We're still, recovering from Memorial Day. You're out there hanging with the boys. You still make time to talk about Tigers baseball. Help us decompress from the misery that is our baseball squad. I appreciate you doing this. It was very interesting. You recording this from your vehicle after a night out with the fellas. I appreciate it
yes,
greatly.
Sir.
I do. I appreciate it greatly. I appreciate reading your work at Detroit Athletic Company, the Free Press. You're doing a lot of big things. A lot of our followers on Twitter are, thinking that you're the head honcho and you're the one signing the checks.
Hey, I need some more money then from the doc if I'm the head honcho, right? But, hey, it's worth it. All the gas that I'm burning right now in the car talking to you, it's all worth it because I love talking Tigers on Tigers Talk. And it's about damn time for the Tigers to improve their ways, start winning some more, and maybe it's about damn time, too, for the Tigers to make a move, right? It's about that time to make a move, I think, to upgrade their rotation, and maybe it's James Shields, but it won't be by any chance A.J. Burnett. Now we've made that clear, I think. He is long retired. He's a guy, Care talked about, too, that veteran type that the Tigers need. He was of that veteran type. Now, Jim Shields, maybe he is of that type of guy that they can add. I know Jim Bowden there, former GM of the Cincinnati Reds, now working for ESPN, brought him up as a candidate. And he'd be a really good middle-of-the-rotation arm and much better than Anibal Sanchez. But who would it be, That is the better question. Who would it be an upgrade over Anibal Sanchez at this point? As we've already seen a clear upgrade in Michael Fulmer to this point. And he's got to be Dr. Toast of the town, right? For this week's podcast.
Oh, of course. Fulmer's had a great week. He gets a seat at the table. He's a guy that's a young cat that has a lot of upside, and he's got the stuff. He's worked on some pitches. He's a guy that has command, and he doesn't seem to be too overwhelmed by the occasion. He gets the award this week for the Doc's Toast of the Town, Michael Fulmer, no doubt about it.
Very good, Doc, with that. I will sign off on this now. Wednesday morning, as it officially is, dropping the podcast on this Wednesday, too, to all of you to listen and download episode 43 of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. And we will talk to you, presumably, in the near future, even maybe next week. And now we'll have to actually finalize that, the Doc Podfather, as I call him. The Podfather and I will have to finalize those details to verify if I can do a podcast next week for episode 44, but if not, I will be back the following week for that episode that will be number 44.
Now,
I'll talk to you guys soon.
Yes,
you have
sir.
a great,
yes, sir.
great one, Doc.
Yes, sir, Vito. Definitely try and get some audio from these Sound Mind, Sound Body camps for sure. Get that audio recorder working, and let's get some audio too for your podcast.
Hey, more audio, right, for the Detroit Sports Podcast Network from yours truly. It can happen. So I will aim for that, Doc, and just because it's you, because I appreciate and respect you so much,
That sounds perfect. See you next time, Vito.
All right, man. I'll talk to you. Have a great night.